What's up everyone, this is Ed Talenti. How are you guys doing? So as you guys know, making a living with music or anything creative like that can be really hard to the point where it feels almost impossible. But there is a term that you guys have heard me mention in past videos and a lot of other YouTubers have talked about it. It's the magical words, multiple streams of income. I truly believe that this is the key for any creative to be able to build a solid income and also create a sort of like long-term stability that the average freelancer doesn't really have. Well, in the past when I used to watch videos like this one, I always felt like I couldn't really relate to the person that was talking to me. They were way ahead of me in their career. Maybe they had already built like a massive online following and just they had access to opportunities that I didn't really have access to at the time. So today I decided to take you guys on a little journey and I'm going to go over all the streams of income that I had built for myself before starting YouTube, before starting this whole social media thing when I had 0 followers and nobody knew who I was. These are all things that I actually did myself at some point in the past and I'd never really heard anybody talking about this stuff on YouTube, but they allowed me to sustain myself financially. And also I truly believe that literally after watching this video, you can go and at least with some of them just do them right away and start making money, like literally right now, right after the video. So yeah, make sure to hit the like button so we can befriend the algorithm, and also make sure to watch the video all the way through. The last tips are just as good as the first ones. I don't want you to miss out. All right, let's get into it. Oh, and also this video is sponsored by Skillshare. First up on our list, we got lessons. Now, this is one of my favorite ones because it can be applied in so many different ways in so many different categories that you can monetize pretty much any skill that you have. There are literally a million different ways to give lessons both locally and online when it comes to music, and these are some of my experiences. So when I was around 14 or 15 years old, I got in pretty decent at drums and my private teacher at the time suggested that I take over some of his younger students. I'm not gonna lie, at first I was pretty terrified because I was like, I'm not even a professional, what am I going to teach to these kids? But soon enough I realized that really all I needed to cover for beginner students was the basics, and I had the basics down. So that was the beginning of it. I was maybe making like 10 or 15 bucks an hour like per lesson, but I was working mostly with little kids and I just really loved like showing my passion, like transferring my passion to these new people and just seeing them like fall in love with the instrument and with music in general. That was just like super rewarding. Shortly after that, I was still in high school and I just kind of wanted to expand my roster of students. So the first thing that I started doing was hitting up music stores. I would go to my local music store and I would start like putting up posters and like little flyers to promote my music lessons. And by doing that, I started to know the people that worked at the music store. Eventually, they started asking about like me and my story. We kind of started talking about drums and like the path that I was on and all this stuff. And they invited me to basically teach at their store. So I'm not sure if you guys know this, but most music stores offer lessons. And one thing they're usually lacking is music production lessons. They always have a ton of guitar teachers, drum teachers, vocal teachers, like people that want to teach. But when it comes to music production and making beats, there's actually a bit of like an empty gap right there. The thing is that younger kids, like their role models, are people that make beats. They're producers, they're rappers, so they want to get into that world and they don't really have access to it. Especially if you live in like a smaller town or like a smaller community or anything like that, the chances are that there's not going to be much competition in the music production lesson space. So from my experience, that's a very real, very direct, and honestly pretty simple way to start getting paid with your music. You can charge, like depending on where you're from, but you can probably charge anywhere between 20 and like 60 bucks depending on where you live. And you don't need to be the greatest producer in the world. You just need to know the basics and put down like a solid program that you can just run your student through it. And as long as you're targeting beginner students, you'll be able to provide a ton of value, and more importantly, you'll be able to inspire people and get people passionate about music production, which is always a good thing. Oh, and a little pro tip that it took me forever to figure out: if you're able to put together group classes, they don't have to be huge, just like 5 to 10 people, then you'll be able to make a lot more money in the same amount of time. Just think about this: if you have one student and you charge them 20 bucks an hour, you're making 20 bucks an hour. If you have a group of 5 and for each of them you just charge them 10 bucks an hour, now you're making 50 bucks. That's a lot more money for you, that's a lot less expensive for them, it's a win-win, everybody's happy. So little pro tip. All right, and here we go with number 2, which is DJing for events without being a DJ. So I'm not gonna lie, I was never much of a DJ. I don't have the personality for it. I never really practiced the skills, so I'm not really very good at it. But here's the thing: if you're DJing for like a wedding or a corporate event or anything like that, you don't need to be the greatest DJ in the world. All you really need to do is be like a real life Spotify playlist. The gigs are really simple. You just have to like build a catalog of music that fits for each event. For example, a wedding, you don't want to play death metal music, you want to play the right kind of music. But it's really simple, and as long as you build some like different playlists playlists, you'll be just fine. The great thing about this is that for just a few hours of work, you can actually charge quite a lot. And if you manage to like push yourself into the circle of like weddings and stuff, you can get a lot of work. If you do a decent enough job as a DJ, and more importantly, you're a professional, you show up on time, you do your work, you're nice to people and stuff like that, chances are that you are going to get recommended for the next event or for the next wedding or like friends. And soon enough, you're going to be full of work. And if you want, you can work every weekend and really make a living with it. For a while, I did a bunch of DJing for corporate events. And the thing is that I was coming from a small area, so I was able to kind of like dominate the scene and just take over. And I was one of the 2 or 3 DJs that were around. So I would get a lot of work from this. So especially if you live in a small area, this is a great way to make money. And it's pretty easy. All right, and here we go with number 3, mixing and mastering. Now, when I say mixing and mastering, most people think of like big songs and they're like, well, I don't really have the room, I don't really have the gear, I don't really have the equipment, so I'm not really capable of mixing and mastering anything professional. That's not exactly what I'm talking about. When I was younger, I didn't really have the mixing skills to be able to mix a song and like charge an artist for that. If I did that, it would have come out terrible and they would have hated me. If you're a beginner to intermediate music producers though, chances are that you know a little bit about mixing. And just try to think about how many things need mixing, like podcasts, local commercials, or like small bands, like little kids that just started out and want to record their first demo, or like things like that. They're not big songs and they don't require like crazy high quality work. You can kind of get by with what you know already. For example, one of the gigs that I did for a while and it paid pretty well and it was honestly really fun was working with this local design studio that was in my town, and they make like a bunch of commercials for like all kinds of different stuff. They always need music and they need it mixed. And yeah, I was able to get in touch with them. I was easy to work with. I lived in the same town, so it was like easy to communicate. Why would they look for somebody else? They had me and they gave me all the work that they had. A relatively easy way to get started with this is go online and try to think of any sort of like local company that could need work done with audio, whether it's a design studio or like a commercial agency or anything like that, and just hit them up, send some of your music, and just try to get in touch with them. And here we go with number 4, renting your space. Now, I know this one doesn't apply to everybody, but most music producers have some sort of at least home studio that they usually work out of. Now, depending on the size of your room, where it's located, how much noise you can make and stuff like that, you can rent it out to all kinds of different people. People that need to do podcasts, audiobooks, bands that need to record if you have the space for that, people that just need to record vocals like rappers and stuff like that. You can think of a million different ways to rent out your room by the hour. The great thing about that is that it doesn't really require a lot of work on your part because you don't even really need to be there. But if you do want to be there and you want to kind of engineer the session, then you can charge them an extra fee for like recording the rehearsal or helping them like run the session and like press record and like cut stuff up and do all that stuff while they're there. It's a great way to make money, and at the same time it's a great way to meet other creative people and just make connections and network and just work. Now, if you do want to engineer the session and maybe you want to record some drums or you want to record a guitar or somebody's vocals and you don't really know how to go about that, there are great places to learn that, like for example, Skillshare. All right, I'm proud of that segue. So for people that don't know, Skillshare is a community of creatives with literally thousands of classes about anything that you can think of. Now, if there's one thing that I'm passionate about is learning, and Skillshare allows me to learn all those little things that I never had the time to explore. It's really easy. You just pick your class, you just open it up and just go through it. You learn a bunch, no ads, no interruptions, and all for like a super small monthly fee. For example, I've been wanting to learn how to make a website from scratch for a really long time, and at the moment I'm taking this class called WordPress Academy, Learn WordPress Step by Step by Chris Dixon, and the class is really amazing. Really well taught, really simple to follow, and I'm just learning a bunch. Anyway, the first 1,000 people that click the link at the top of the description get a free trial for a premium membership at Skillshare. It's completely free, you got nothing to lose, just click it, go check it out, it's awesome. Alright, and here we go with number 5, the last one for today, organize music events. Now, this is one that has to do with music, but in a slightly different way, because you're not actually making the music, you're planning events that have to do with music. The thought process behind this one is that it doesn't need to be necessarily your main activity. We talked about multiple streams of income, so this is just another way to make money with your music or just in the music world. Now, there are a million different ways to go about this one, but the one that I liked the most, the one that I did the most, just because I knew a lot of bands and people in bands, was to organize events like concert nights at local venues. So this is what I would do. I would think of like 4 or 5 bands that would work together on the same night. I would hit them up and see if they were interested in doing a concert together. Then I would put together a press kit for all 5 of the bands and just kind of present it as a unique thing. Go to my local venue and just give them a night that was already like ready to go. I would basically show up at the venue with like a full plan for the night. I would tell them how many followers and like how many people the artists were going to bring, like for each of the bands or each of the artists. And then I would basically just do all the work that the venue usually does, but I would just present it to them already done. All the venue really had to do was accept the deal, and they would have like a full night completely planned out without any work on their part. So by doing this, I was actually making money a couple different ways. The first one was by selling tickets. So if the venue was selling tickets for $8 each, I would actually take some more work off of them. I would sell the tickets myself, but for $10, and that $2 profit would just go to me. The second way I would make money from this is that, especially over time, venues started really liking working with me because they wouldn't have to do anything and they would have like a great night already planned. So they actually started paying me to organize nights for them. So as with some of the other ones that we talked about earlier, especially if you're from a smaller town, it's going to be pretty easy with some work to become the promoter guy of your city. And then soon enough, venues are just going to start hitting you up to plan nights for them. Also, a big plus of this one is that you're going to meet a bunch of local artists that you can just network with and become friends with, and then hopefully work together in the future. All right, I guess this is it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe button and notification bell. I'll see you guys in the next one, and as always, be positive, and positive things will happen.